Trudeau's meeting King Charles. Apparently that's supposed to be a strong message to Trump that the 51st state isn't going to happen. But I don't see how. It just seems to signal that Canada's on team globalist. And that's it, really. So weird. And Zelensky meeting Charles, I'm not surprised about. He was in Europe along with Trudeau for a European Security Summit that says basically, we want to continue the Ukrainian war with or without the United States, but would really like the United States to keep funding it. So that's basically what they're meeting on there. And they're going to present Trump with a plan. Ha! So that's going to be funny. We're going to talk about that. Trudeau was the one to give Trump the idea for 51st state, but what could he want? He wants the 51st state. Trudeau was the one who gave him the idea. And now the National Post is saying, what do you think Trump wants? And I think they're just trying to control the narrative and control what people think Trump wants, when really what Trump wants is plain as day. And he said it a bunch of times, and we'll go over it. Ukraine and the United Kingdom already made a deal for minerals, a 100-year deal. So the whole song and dance of having a peace deal with Zelensky and Trump doing a mineral deal and all the rest of it, Zelensky knew the whole time from January 17th that it was false. And so Trump has been taken for a ride, and that'll be interesting to see what Trump does. It looks like he's going to stop funding Ukraine's war. So that's fun. And they want a war in Ukraine by any means necessary, any means necessary at all. And they will lie and they will cheat and they will steal and they will tell you it's for your safety, comrade. It's for your security. It's because Trump's a really mean guy and we need to do it for sure, definitely. And it's going to be very interesting watching the Warhawks try and get this war off the ground, especially because they don't have the money. They don't have any money. So lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to start with Trump and Ukraine. Like Trump and Ukraine, it's all kind of merging together. The tariffs, the disagreement between Trudeau and, well, Canada and the United States, Trudeau and Trump, all of that kind of stuff is coming out, and it's all kind of mixed together. So we've got lots of Canadian news, but this is, I mean, all of the Ukraine, Trump, Russia stuff is Canadian news because, like Keir Starmer and Macron, Canada is going to want to help with boots on the ground for, quote, peacekeeping, et cetera, et cetera. And they're angling to get this happening. And that's a hard no for me, dog. So, man, it's absolutely wild what's going on. So I think that we have to start with Trump and Ukraine and what's going on with all that to understand the politics happening in Canada too. So here we go. Lots to get to. Let's get to it. I think I said that. BUAC says, I like how Team Canada takes an emergency flight to Europe to discuss things with Zelensky when we are days away from 25% tariffs. That's supposed to be tomorrow. Team Canada put zero effort into negotiating away these tariffs. It's because only citizens will pay the price. Never forget how much they hate you. So Freedom 51s, BUAC is saying we should become the 51st state. National Post is pondering, what could possibly he want? What do you think Trump wants? Even Trump may not know what he wants, they say, in a trade war with Canada. Well, let's see what Trump says. What do you think? Mr. Trump, what would you like out of this trade war you're not starting, but going to definitely win against Canada? And here's Trump on Truth Social, or one of his social media platforms. He says, no one can answer why we subsidize Canada to the tune of over $100,000 a year. Makes no sense. Many Canadians want Canada to become the 51st state. They would save massively on taxes and military protection. I think it's a great idea. 51st state. What do you think he wants? The National Post says, I don't know. I'm not sure what he wants. It's so opaque. It's so unclear. I'm not sure. Just what could he want? I'm not sure. I was looking for the Marco Rubio clip because it was just out of order. But here's Marco Rubio telling an interviewer that actually it was Justin Trudeau who convinced Donald Trump that this configuration would be a good idea, because he told Donald Trump that Canada wouldn't exist without the financial supports of the United States. So if that's the case, then we're already in the 51st state configuration, which is what I've been saying. And if Canada can't stand on its own, then why should the United States subsidize it? The United States should absorb it. And it has no responsibility to Canada. It has a responsibility, and Trump has said multiple times, I have a responsibility to the United States and to making it bigger, stronger, as great as better than it's ever been in anybody's lifetime. And if his version of a better United States is it includes Canada, and Canada said, we are economically completely crippled unless you continue buying our cars and oil. Donald Trump says, okay, no problem. Sounds fun, right? Sounds like a project, right? So here's how it went down, according to Marco Rubio. This is from Mr. Sunshine Baby, but this is legit. Here we go.
President Trump has talked about expanding the U.S. footprint. In a hot mic moment, Canada's Prime Minister said that absorbing Canada is a real thing. Is it a real thing?
Look, you know how that came about? President's meeting with Trudeau, and Trudeau says, well, if you even out our trade relationship, then we will cease to exist as a country. At which point the president responded very logically, and that is, well, if you can't exist without cheating in trade, then you should become a state. That was his observation.
That's how it started.
It is how it started. And I think he's told the story publicly. And that's how all this began. Look, Canada's our friend. Canada's our neighbor. Canada's our partner. But it goes back to the point I made. For decades, the United States allowed uneven trade imbalances to develop. During the Cold War, you know why we did it? We did it because we felt like we want countries to be strong economically, even if it means they're cheating, because we don't want them to fall victim to some internal Marxist coup that overturns their government or what have you. Those days are gone. These are rich, developed economies. And ultimately...
Hold on a second, Mr. Rubio. I feel like you haven't looked at Canada really closely, because I feel like there's a Marxist coup happening right now. And driving us closer to China would be these tariffs. However, I think that it's probably the tariffs are the vehicle by which Trump is able to make Canada act. So if Canada understands these tariffs are coming and acts the way we've acted, that's a message too, right? So, but it's very interesting that Rubio's saying, oh, well, we're not worried about Marxists taking over the country or anything like that. You're a developed economy. Well, are we? Are we?
Who can argue against the fact that whatever they charge us, we should charge them? Whatever they prohibit, if they don't allow American companies to do it, we should not allow their companies to do it here. American banks can't even operate in Canada. So there has to be reciprocity here. We can continue to work together on all kinds of things, but whether it's Canada, Mexico, China, anybody else, when it comes to economics and trade, there has to be reciprocity, there has to be fairness. And who would argue, how can anybody argue against that? The days where we just allow countries to take advantage of us, that has to end. That's not good for the global order. That leads to imbalances that create friction points. That's the case with Canada. It's the case with a lot of countries who are our allies and friends. But on trade, we have an imbalance and it has to be dealt with.
So there you go. Canada said, hey, listen, man, we're super economically weak. And Trump said, delicious. Sounds good. Sounds like a starter plate, right? He's not trying to take over England or Mexico. He just wants Canada. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but if Canada, if you're sitting around one day and say you have a pretty nice business and somebody walks in and says, if you don't continue subsidizing my business with your business, my business ceases to exist. And you say, hold on, let me look at those financials. Yeah, okay, I'll take your business. Right? You don't have a responsibility to keep that thing going. Why not just take it and maybe you'll manage it better? So I understand Trump's point of view, but as a Canadian, I wish we had intelligent leadership who understand the game that's going on, because I feel like we don't. And the people who don't understand the game that's going on are aligning themselves with other people who don't understand the game that's going on. And maybe Trump is going to smash them all. Although maybe they're playing another metagame, a third game that Trump's not playing, and maybe they know more than Trump knows. And they're aligning themselves with the puppet masters who think they're going to best Trump because they've won in the past multiple times. And there are storied people, their names, Napoleon, and they've been able to smash them and exile them and make sure that they were not able to stop this plan that's rolling. So it's a very interesting time, that's for sure. What does Donald Trump want? Here's another reminder of what Donald Trump wants, just because the National Post is being stupid and not listening to the man. So just in case you're not sure of what Donald Trump wants, Justin Trudeau told him, Canada's super weak. Do you want it? And he said, yes, please. Here we go.
How does this align with America First?
Because it makes us bigger, stronger, and better. Canada, we'll see what happens with Canada, but the people of Canada would be paying less than half of the tax. If you look at the tax, they're going to be paying less than half the tax. They don't pay very much for military, and the reason they don't pay much is they assume that we're going to protect them. That's not an assumption they can make, because why are we protecting another country? Now, I love the people of Canada. We have a great relationship. But if they became our 51st state, it would be the greatest thing they could ever do. It would be unbelievable. It would be a cherished state. And think of how beautiful that country would be without that artificial line running right through it. Somebody drew it many years ago with a ruler, just a line. You look at how beautiful that is, wow, it would be very exciting. But if you look at Canada, it would be cherished as a 51st state. They don't pay their share of military in NATO. They pay very little for military. They're not protected at all. And the reason is they think we're going to protect them. The other thing is we subsidize them to the tune of about $200 billion a year. If we stop doing that, if we stop allowing them to make cars through tariffs and other things, cars, trucks, etc., what they make, they're not viable as a country. So we're making our country larger, we're making our country stronger. And in the case of Canada, if this should happen, I don't know how they can do it without us, because without the U.S., Canada really doesn't have a country. They do almost all of their business with us. And if we say we want our cars to be made in Detroit, with a stroke of a pen, I can do that. And other things in addition to that would not allow Canada to be a viable country.
So what does he want? He wants to fix this problem that is, well, and make America bigger and stronger and blah, 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 blah. So asking the question is admitting you just don't listen to what Donald Trump is saying. Here's the Toronto media trying to hector Wayne Gretzky into denouncing Donald Trump. Toronto Star says, it's time to speak up for Canada, Wayne, and denounce your friend Trump's treatment of your country. Oh, okay, it's weird when the media hectors hockey players, right? Like, hey, hockey player, it's time to do what we want because the Canadian media makes a demand and you jump, right? Like Jonathan Kay says, this thing where our media lectures a retired athlete about what he needs to say and not say about politics has got to be the stupidest Canadian thing I've seen in a long time. We are such a petty little country sometimes. Yep. It's really, really strange. Here's Mark Carney, and he's talking about the whole Donald Trump situation. And he's basically saying, you know, we've got to show strength in the face of this bully. And we don't have the economics. It came right from Justin Trudeau. We don't have the economic strength to stand up to this bully, and it's going to take years to build the economic strength to stand up to this bully. And really, he's not much of a bully. He is protecting the Arctic region from Russia and from other places that, you know, might be encroaching on it. And, you know, they just renamed the Arctic region instead of the Canadian Arctic, but whatever, it's fine, right? And so, like, you show that bully who's protecting our Arctic region. It's a strange perspective, and I just can't align with it because it's more globalist claptrap. It's nonsense. Here we go.
You soften him up. You soften him up for me. No, like what our strategy with Trump, and I've dealt with Trump in the past. He respects strength. He respects strength. Like a lot of bullies, he respects strength, and that's part of the reason. Look, we got to build here for ourselves, but it's also to show him that we are masters in our own home. Right? We're in charge.
Are you the master of your domain, Justin? Come on, really? Seriously? That's what's going on here? Come on, we're the masters, Donald Trump, and you're not. Except that if you cut off the oil purchases and the car purchases, we're going to be real upset because we're not going to have any money to be masters in our own. We're going to be masters of the fire that is going to keep us warm in this cold winter, right? That's it, because we don't have any money to pay for natural gas or anything like that, and extract natural gas. Climate change, right? So, carbon taxes make it too expensive. Six Buzz TV says Prime Minister Trudeau said his main focus in talks with King Charles will be ensuring Canada's independence after President Donald Trump recently proposed making Canada the 51st state. Again, this meeting is supposed to be a big signal or whatever. I don't care. It doesn't give me. King Charles is as foreign to me as Vladimir Putin, right? And I understand we're, subjects of the British Crown and we're a colony and all the rest of that. But the Canada that I grew up in was kind of an independent Canada with the Canadian maple leaf. We weren't structured outside of politics when I was a kid growing up, and even into my teens or whatever. The monarchy never played more than a ceremonial kind of third party distant role. Like, we don't really pay attention to this monarchy thing. I know there are people out there who are monarchists, like Jason Kenney loves the monarchy, and there are other Canadian people who really love the monarchy. I'm agnostic about the whole thing. It doesn't really bother me one way or the other, but I think it's really, really strange that, especially in a situation like this, like our long-standing biggest trading partner and somebody who Canada relies on, the United States, is pissed at us, and we're pretending like we really, really care about the British monarchy at this point in time. I don't see it. I think it's kind of bullshit, and it doesn't sway me. I don't think to myself, that'll show Trump. That's definitely going to help this situation for sure. Definitely good use of your time, Justin. Like, bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's nonsense. This whole thing is nonsense. It's a show meant to influence us. It's bullshit. I don't trust King Charles. I don't trust Justin Trudeau. I don't trust Macron or Starmer or any of these freaking clowns. I don't trust any of these people, right? It's crazy. And we're supposed to look at this picture and be assured that things are like going in the right direction. Give me a freaking break. These people are criminals, and we all know it. COVID, what now? Right? Like just that. These people should be in jail, and then we should look at their bank accounts. I digress. No wonder CBC hates me. Cat Turd is responding to JD Vance. JD Vance says, the threat to Europe is not Russia or China, but Europe itself, which has lost its fundamental values. Do you agree with JD Vance? Yes. Cat Turd said yes as well. And here, I think this is the group of them. No, maybe it's not. There's a group of the G7 leaders, or here it is. And this is securing our future. When they say securing our future, they're talking about the elitist a-holes in this picture, their future. That's the future they're trying to secure with this nonsense, right? This is the London Security Summit. And this is meant to build a European army that can respond to and or directly threaten the United States and say, like, we've got nuclear bombs too. Don't you dare mess around with us, or we're going to, do things that you won't like. And then the Book of Rome, North America bloc situation looks more and more likely, right? But these guys are not people who have earned, I think, the trust of the citizens who are governed by them. And what they've done is actually destroyed their credibility through this nonsense war, because it's nonsense. And like, I think I can see that from my garage, and I think most people with sense can see that. And anybody who's pushing for the war, continued war, this peace deal to be scuttled for whatever reason, seems to be an agent of either a useful idiot or an agent of the deep state, or somebody being paid for their support of the war and so on and so forth, or they benefit from it directly. And that's not good either, right? So I think that the people in charge of Europe right now are the ones who are the biggest danger to it. And that's a scary place to be. Oops. Donald Trump muses about leaving NATO. He says we should spend less time worrying about Putin and more time worrying about migrant rape gangs, drug lords, murderers, and people from mental institutions entering our country, so that we don't end up like Europe. And Clandestine says maybe it's just wishful thinking, but it sounds like Trump is flirting with the idea of moving away from NATO. NATO's entire existence revolves around defeating Russia, and Trump is suggesting we have higher priorities than Putin. Perhaps a sign of things to come. Maybe. We'll see how that all plays out. And the Spectator Index says Macron says he's ready to open the discussion regarding a European nuclear deterrent. So that's interesting. Who are we deterring? Because you seem to be importing a certain group of people. Like, it's very, very strange that we need nuclear deterrents against the United States. Europe needs protection assurance against that Donald Trump guy. Weird. It's a weird configuration now. Libs of TikTok is reporting Trump is meeting with aides today to discuss canceling the United States military aid to Ukraine. So Trump is pissed, and he's following through. This is the video I mentioned yesterday. I said that Putin was interested in exploring rare earth metals deal in the Donbass and in areas that Russia had taken over from Ukraine. And I thought that would be a kind of a funny situation if you had Canadian peacekeepers in Ukraine and American, whoever working with Russia, drilling for precious metals on the other side of that line. You know what I mean? Like, everybody here is friendly-ish, friendly enough. So, but there you go. There's your configuration of European versus the United States, European army versus the United States. Here's the video. Larry says, Vladimir Putin has offered a potential deal with the U.S. regarding rare earth minerals, emphasizing that Russia possesses far more of these valuable resources than Ukraine. You know who also has rare earth minerals by a lot? Canada. We do. Yep, sure we do. And so if Donald Trump was able to make this deal and also get Canada, he'd have lots of rare earth metals to play with, right? So here's Putin. I'll read this because I don't think it's translated. Here we go. Putin offers U.S. We would be open to cooperation with our American partners, he says. And when I say partners, I mean not only administrative and governmental agencies, but also private companies. If they show interest in working together, Russia possesses significantly larger resources of this kind than Ukraine, because Russia's huge. Russia is one of the uncontested leaders when it comes to rare and rare earth metal reserves. We have deposits in the north, in Murmansk and in the Caucasus and other regions, as well as in the Far East, in other regions. So there you go. And he starts naming regions. So I'm just going to, this is a nightmare for me. At least it's not last names. So he wants to work with people. He also talks about aluminum, and I've shown part of this video, I think. American companies, foreign internships, working with the Russian, within the Russian Federation. So that'll be interesting. Super duper interesting if that comes to play. Do you think that Russia and America will be able to normalize trading relations? With the backdrop of Europe trying to fight a war. Here is the United Kingdom and France. They're working on their own ceasefire plan. This ceasefire plan, make no mistake, it's not a ceasefire plan. They're trying to buy time to figure out how to make Trump the bad guy and to basically spark this war where Trump is the mean bad guy and Europe is fighting against Trump. But I don't see how they're going to make that turn yet. It's not apparent to me. They're still trying out different narratives, and they're throwing whatever at the wall to see what sticks. But basically they're trying, and right now they're basically saying that Trump embarrassed the United States and he shouldn't have done what he did. But after finding out that the mineral deal was already done with England in January, I think that England and Zelensky were negotiating in bad faith. No wonder he didn't sign the deal. He'd already signed a deal with other people. So anyway, here is this guy, and he's talking about the ceasefire plans. Here we go.
Well, first off, they've got to change the fact that on the 17th of January, the British signed an agreement with Ukraine to have exclusive rights to those deals. Kershaw, this is a battle of dueling narratives. You can go check it out. This is on the British-UK website. It talks about this 100-year, Ukraine and UK signed a 100-year deal.
Right.
Over security guarantees and economic development. So what happened is that I believe President Trump and his team found out that they were being played. So this has become a set of dueling narratives. The BBC just said today there's massive protests here. Zach Andrews just said all the European leaders are behind Zelensky. We are being played. We, the United States, are trying to be signed up to a deal that we provide security guarantees to a economic development deal that Keir Starmer has already signed them up to do. So the first thing it has to do is people have to take a step back and be honest with what's really going on. And so I think what happened here, I don't know the details, it wasn't in that meeting, but Kershaw, the president was trying to play a straight line deal to sign an agreement with them over this mineral rights deal, knowing full well that the British had already signed on this 3 days before his inauguration. So where we go from here is both sides, if this is going to work, if the Europeans really want our help, they're going to have to take a step back and start being honest with the United States about what's really going on.
They don't want your help. They want to start a war. Here's the paper that he was referencing. It says UK-Ukraine 100-year partnership declaration posted January 17th, 2025. Pursuant to Article 11, Paragraph 3 of the 100-year partnership agreement signed 16 January 25 between the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and Ukraine, both sides have reached the following understandings. So Pillar 1, defense. Pillar 2, security. Pillar 3, maritime. Pillar 4, economy and trade. And Pillar 5, energy, climate, and clean energy transition. Justice and accountability. That's Pillar 6. Pillar 7, countering foreign information manipulation and interference. FIMI. Pillar 8, science, technology, and innovation. Pillar 9, social, cultural, and sport. So number 10, final provisions. I haven't actually gone through this to highlight eyebrow raising things, but I mean, the fact that they have climate change in there, that they have misinformation and disinformation, it sounds like dictatorship. It sounds like technocracy. It sounds like a whole bunch of bullshit that I wouldn't want anything to do with whatsoever. Joe Lang says, this is a big revelation. I didn't know Zelensky had already cut a deal with the United Kingdom. Do you think that Trump didn't know that Zelensky had already made a deal with the UK for mineral rights? The secret deal went down in January, and then in February, Trump puts Zelensky on the spot by saying that we'll take Ukraine's minerals as payback for all the money and weapons we've given them. That was a signal to Zelensky that Trump knew about the deal. Then Trump said that it's unfair that all of Europe is going to get paid back for their support, but Ukraine isn't going going to pay America back at all, and Zelensky wants even more. That was Trump sending a signal to the UK and Europe. This is why Trump negotiated a peace deal with Putin and MBS, a peace deal that did not include Zelensky or Europe. Coincidence? We control the oil. We can't make this easy or difficult, or we can make this easy or difficult. Trump is cutting off the taxpayer money to Zelensky, and there will be no U.S. troops keeping Ukraine secure. Europe gets to pay for it all and defend Ukraine without U.S. help. Let's see how long they can keep it up. Something tells me that this is rapidly approaching the point where Trump declares we're pulling out of NATO and then pulling our troops out of Germany. The days of subsidizing Europe are coming to an end. So that's a very interesting situation, and that's color on the video I just showed you. Okay, very, very interesting. I don't know how this all plays out, but it seems like it's a very high stakes game of poker being played out in the open, which is like chess. Chess is a war played in front of your opponent, right? So you're putting your pieces in front of your opponent, and they're doing the same in front of you, and one of you is going to win. France and EU move to secure Ukraine minerals, and as US pushes for a deal. So Kate says Trump knew. He knew this week. And I think that that's borne out. I think that he did know. I think that he knew, and that's why he put Zelensky on TV to back out of the deal, because he knew he was going to back out because he couldn't sign it because he'd already signed it. So he knew. Trump knew and positioned that so it would happen. Interesting. And then now he's using that to pull out of the Ukrainian funding, right? Whereas if that didn't happen, if Trump didn't look like a peacemaker trying to make a deal, genuinely trying to make a deal, and then he got screwed over, then the public maybe has a different opinion of this. But as it is, the public is on Trump's side here because they feel betrayed just like Trump does, right? If you're watching a movie and like the movie focuses on somebody and they're walking down the street and they trip, like you become that person. You know what I mean? Like you're now that person, you're following along, and Trump is the main character that you're following along with. And you feel, or the idea is for you to feel betrayed when he feels betrayed, right? That's what he's trying to accomplish. And I think effectively too. Henry says, look, Ma, a bunch of traitors to the European people. And here's European and NATO leaders at the London Defense Summit. No Trump. But there's Justin right behind Zelensky. And Zelensky doesn't have a suit on, right? No suit on there. He's got his tracksuit on. So you've got to dress up when you're meeting all the world leaders, right? Here's Justin Trudeau, chatting with Zelensky, and Clandestine says, my biggest takeaway from today's events in London is that the United States should leave NATO immediately. We gain nothing from NATO, but we lose trillions of dollars, and we risk full-scale World War III by being in a defensive alliance with these warmongers. It's time to leave NATO. We live in a game of civilization, right? Somebody's going to click, nope, we're not continuing this thing, and all hell's going to break loose. It's going to be interesting, but only for a couple of turns, right? It'll be interesting for a few turns. Nick says, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced the UK is preparing boots on the ground to send into Ukraine. So that's interesting. Now, Western troops are being sent to the meat grinder. This is what Trump warned us about. They're desperately trying to launch World War III. America needs to stay far away from this. I agree. Here's Keir Starmer talking about boots on the ground in Ukraine.
The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air, together with others. Europe must do the heavy lifting. But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong US backing.
How about no? How about absolutely not? Oh, how about our boots on the ground is going to be all the new British people that have been imported, right? Here is on the street guy in England asking some new Brits, are you guys going to fight in this war against Ukraine? No.
You guys live in the UK?
Yeah, we do.
Would you join the military?
No. We're not from this country.
If they say it's compulsory, what would you do?
I'll just go back to Egypt. Go back to my country. No, I'll just go back to my country.
I just go back to Egypt. Oh, Egypt. That other country. A different country that's not here, right? Oh, there's more. There's more.
I'm not a UK citizen. I'm an immigrant.
I'm Welsh.
No, unfortunately not. I'm not from this country.
You're Welsh? Wales is like Kitchener. Wales is like just down the road. I don't know about this whole I'm Welsh. Hold on a second. I'm not fighting for this king, okay? I'm Welsh. That's possibly more funny if you're in the United Kingdom. Or if you know anything. My family, we used to go caravanning in Wales, and maybe that's isn't that weird? Is that weird? But it's so their highways, like the 401 is called like the M1 or the M5 or something like that. And not MI5, just the M5. And so we would go down and get on the highway and then get off on the next exit. Like it wouldn't be a highway drive. And then we'd be in Wales, like the next exit over 10 minutes and we're in Wales. And then Wales is basically farms and it's rolling hills full of sheep. That's basically all it is. And occasionally pub, like you come around a bend and then there's a whole bunch of cars and a small looking house. And then you go in there and it's a pub and then you have lunch or whatever. And then you carry on your way. And the people driving there drive far too fast for the width of the road and the curves that you're going around. It's insane. I was 10 or 11 and fearful for my life at times. And then I went and drove in Ireland when I was an adult. This is in like 2012 or 2013. And same thing. It was insane. And when you're driving though, it feels super fun. So I can understand why people get speeding. I'm Welsh. Don't worry, lads, says George. We'll replace you with several legions of the finest migrants who will remain behind in Britain to protect your wives and children after you are sent into the meat grinder. Oh, and the Welsh. The Welsh will hang out too. That's fine. Don't worry about that, everybody. Tom Quiggin says it's almost funny to listen to Europeans complain about invaders in Ukraine when their own countries have been overrun by Islamist invaders by the millions, right? And I thought like, oh, wow, now the gloves are coming off, eh? If Tom Quiggin's pointing out like, hey, Europe's being overrun by the Middle East, but we're going to send the natural-born Brits into the meat grinder of Ukraine to protect their democracy. Okay, that sounds crazy. France, CTV News is reporting France and United Kingdom propose 1 month Ukraine truce, Macron says to Le Figaro. And the reason they want a truce is because there's no money and or Trump's pissed and they need to find a configuration where the populations that they represent are on their side and think Trump is the bad guy. And that's not a hard sell. A lot of people in Canada even think Trump is the bad guy. And again, I lament that people don't listen to what Trump says. What could he possibly want, says the National Post, right? Like, it's pretty clear what he wants. He's very clear about what he says. Sometimes what he says is a misdirection and things like that. But still, like, you've got somewhere to start from there. And then you can look at the behavior and things that he's done in addition to the things that he said. And sometimes it bears it out, right? So it's interesting watching the European faction with Canada try and figure this out in real time, because it seems like Trump holds the money, the funding, and he could just withhold it. And if he withholds it, then these guys are screwed. He's just going to say, no, I'm not going to do that. You guys can fund this defense all you want, but I'm not going to. And then the defense is going to fall apart. And if relations are normalized between Russia and the United States, what does that mean? What does that mean for Europe, right? If Europe wants this war, but the United States and Russia don't, what does that mean? So it's a very interesting situation. Here's Zelensky hanging out with King Charles. These are globalists. That's it. That's all this means. This means we are globalists who listen and do what we're told. King Charles is a globalist too. Have you seen the picture of the Rothschild guy poking King Charles' chest? You're not allowed to touch royals. You can't they don't carry money. They're not allowed to carry money because just in case you might touch a commoner, okay? You're not allowed to touch a royal. The Rothschilds are like, listen, King Charles, I'm going to poke you on the chest and he was a prince at this point in time, but I'm going to poke you on the chest until you do what I say. And so you're not allowed to do that, right? These guys are globalists. Zelensky's a globalist, doing what he's told, and Charles is a globalist, doing what he's told. And all of the leaders across the West at this point, with the possible exception of Donald Trump, are all controlled by the same person. Other people think that Donald Trump is for freedom, maybe. I don't think he works for the same people that Zelensky and Charles work for, and even Justin Trudeau. I think he works for different people, if he works for anybody. He may work for a different faction. Some people say Jesuits. Pope's a Jesuit, right? So there's all sorts of theories about who Trump works for and who Trump represents. But at this point in time, like, I don't know. And it's interesting watching the animosity between the two, because there's clearly animosity. There's clearly disagreement. And it seems like they're trying to push the United States into the same bubble as Russia. They're trying to say like, oh, they're against the international rules-based order. And the international rules-based order is just a dictatorship. It's just a dictatorship that they're trying to establish within Western countries. And so if you're on board with the dictatorship, then you're in the club. And if you're not, then you're not. And if you're not, then they're going to crush you militarily, except they lost control of the biggest military in the world. And so they're going to try and reconstitute it in Europe, right? See what I'm saying? Here's Clandestine. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful